Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
As a sports fan, I have to confess. Sometimes the game gets kind of boring. That's when I unfold my Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 and use multi-window viewing on its large screen. Boring game? I'm checking out my fantasy baseball league at the same time. Score still 1-0? I'm replying to emails in the other window, scoring points with the boss. Semifinals finally getting exciting? I'm buying tickets to the finals and booking my flights. Can your phone do that?
The new Galaxy Z Fold 7. Get yours at Samsung.com.
Hello and welcome to the I Can Do podcast with Benjamin Lee. We're here to talk about tips and strategies to have an I can do mindset when it comes to faith, family, fitness, and food. Let's go. Here's your host, Benjamin Lee.
Hello and welcome to another episode of I Can Do. I am Benjamin Lee. Thank you so much once again for tuning in. On the show today, we have another special guest with us. He certainly has an I Can Do mentality. His name is Darrin Simmons. Darrin is a NFL coach. He is the assistant head coach and special teams coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals. Simmons is now in his 17th season with the team and stands as the longest tenured coach on staff. Over his Bengals career, his work with the special teams units has helped rewrite the team's record book. Simmons entered the NFL in 1998 with the Baltimore Ravens, where he served as assistant special teams coach and assistant strength and conditioning coach. He then joined the Carolina Panthers, where he served in the same role from 1999 to 2002. And then he joined the Bengals in 2003. In this wide-ranging discussion, we talk about family, the importance of family and the importance of hard work, handling pressure, routines, preparation, and leadership. I got to tell you, this was an absolute thrill to be able to spend some time with Coach, and I really appreciate him for taking time out of his busy schedule. I hope that you will also enjoy the show. Ready, set, here we go. Coach, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to being able to talk and discuss some things.
Yeah, I'm really excited having you on the show, and I appreciate your time. I know we're on the game clock here. I'm sure you have a busy day, so we'll go ahead and get started here. I wanted to see if you could take us back to Kansas. I know Kansas has a lot of significance for you with, I believe you grew up there and played football at Dodge City Community College and then the University of Kansas. How or what was it that really got you started with football and really your passion for the game?
Well, I mean, really, I was a multi-sport athlete in high school. I mean, I'm from a very small town in southwest Kansas called Elkhart. There's, give or take, a little over 2,000 people. That's I think is kind of dwindling a little bit now, like a lot of those small towns are, I think, in southwest Kansas. But, sports was the way that's what we did. I grew up on a farm, a wheat farm. We farmed wheat. Had a little bit of corn and some Milo. And so a lot of my summers were spent helping my dad on the farm. So, during the school year, I mean, that's what we did. We played all sports, played football, basketball, ran track, played a little bit of baseball in the summertime too. I come from a pretty athletic family. I had an uncle who was a coach in the NFL. We played college football. All of my uncles, my dad included, were all athletes. We're all good high school players. I was fortunate enough after my high school career was over to get a scholarship to play at Dodge City, a community college in Kansas. The junior college football system or conference in Kansas was a significant one at the time. It was good. And it was a way for maybe small town rural Kansas kids to maybe bridge the gap if they were good enough to play, to get up into whether it's Division I, Division II, whatever it may have been, football. So that was a very unique way. I got recruited to a couple of Division I schools, but I was used to playing all the time. and playing every sport and never really having to sit. And so that was a big deal for me, I think, to go play in junior college. I was going to have the ability to play or get the ability to play right away and not have to sit and learn and do a lot. I was going to be able to continue to play the whole way through. Football was the best bridge for me to be able to do that. Fortunately, I was good enough to be able to go on after Dodge City. I was a starting quarterback and a starting punter at Dodge City, and I was fortunate enough to be able to go on and play at the University of Kansas after that. My decision to go to KU was a big one for me because the biggest deal was it gave my parents the ability to come still see me play. I had a brother who was also a college football player, also was a good high school player, and he eventually played at Pittsburgh State. Us being both in state, I don't think my parents ever missed any of our home games, any of our home games. And a lot of times, because we both played on Saturday, my dad would come to my game, my mom would go to my brother's game, and then sometimes they would flip the next week if they both had home games. My dad would go to my brother's game, my mom would come to my game, or whatever it may be. But it was still going to give us the opportunity or my parents the opportunity to come see us play. Yeah. So that was a big deal. That was a big deal for us.
Yeah, very nice. I know, today, I know you have children and I have a son. Sports is obviously a very big thing, and I know a lot of people are missing sports. I guess prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, obviously everything was going on as normal. I know there's a lot of pressure at times, I think, for young people with maybe even like individualized sports. And you had mentioned you just kind of played a variety of sports just all throughout the year. Do you have any advice or thoughts with respect to young people or parents when it comes to just kind of when kids start off playing sports? Should they kind of just do that fast track, or do you think it's better for them to kind of have a broader approach?
Well, I think it's a big deal to have a broad approach. I think parents should push their kids to play as many sports as they can possibly play, go on and not be so centralized. I've seen it happen so many times. Where I live here in Mason is a suburb of Cincinnati. There's such pressure to focus on one sport and to go to all these camps and all these showcase things. But that I really believe, though, that kids need to be as multifaceted as they can possibly be. Lacrosse is a sport that I never grew up around. It's much bigger here in Ohio than it is maybe back home in Kansas or in the Midwest. But it's really become a big sport here in Ohio. And I've got 3 kids. I've got a daughter who's a graduating senior. I have a son who's a freshman, a son who's a 5th grader.
Nice.
And it's very unique. The summer lacrosse team that my son plays for, it's a good club, it's a good organization. And they were just a recruiting seminar they had via Zoom a couple of weeks ago. And one of their big criteria was whenever you start to make profiles as an underclassman, as you start to make recruiting or scouting profiles, is that you put of other sports that you play. And you list all the other sports that you play, that was as big a deal as anything. Not just seeing them play lacrosse, but really seeing your athleticism in other sports. I would certainly push kids and parents to play as many sports as you can and let your athleticism and your ability to do other things come through. Not just the sport that you want to focus on, but let your athleticism show in other things that you can do too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. Yeah, I tried to play some sports in high school. I played a little bit, but didn't get too far. So it sounds like family had a big impact upon you with your uncle and your father, and certainly just looking at your track record and all the things you've been able to accomplish, which is really phenomenal. I know you have a lot of discipline and a good work ethic. Did that really begin working on the farm? Or is that just something that was just a part of how your parents raised you?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, I think it was really both. I attribute a lot of that to being on the farm, the demands that our parents put on us, me and my brother both, and really my family in general, of what it means to work hard and to try to go accomplish something, and how rewarding that is when you work hard and get something out of it. I think there's no better example of that than what farmers, do. Farmers work their tail off, tilling the land, plowing the land. They plant a crop, and then really you're relying upon Mother Nature to help really raise that crop and give it enough moisture and enough water to grow. And then ultimately it could be destroyed also by weather too. by hail or storms that come through. But in the end, though, how fulfilling it is, though, when you do have a good crop, and how fulfilling that can be, and how much that means. And I think the work ethic that they instilled in us a long time ago has helped attribute to whatever minimal amount of success I've had. I think that's been the backbone of it is there's never going to be anybody that's going to do more or outwork me. I always feel so fortunate to be in the position I'm in. And I know that the one thing in the back of my mind all the time that I always go back to is there's 1,000 other people who want to get where I'm at. And so I got to work harder than them. There's nothing special about me other than the fact that I'm going to outwork them to stay where I'm at. So it's like a little bit of a survival of the fittest, I guess. I want to work harder than all the rest of those people to stay where I'm at.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I know before we started the show, we were talking a little bit, and you had mentioned you wake up early. I started back in 2016. I went through a physical transformation, and a buddy of mine actually wanted to start working out at 5 o'clock at the gym. I said, man, if I have to wake up at 5 or get to the gym by 5, that means I got to wake up by 4. So we ended up doing that for like a couple of weeks. And then something happened with his job, but I kept doing it. So in 2016, after about 3 weeks, I started feeling better. I felt terrible for the first 3 weeks, but waking up around 4 o'clock back then, and I'm still doing it for the most part. It's not maybe every day, but it really did change my life, where I like to describe it as living 2 days in one. I know you mentioned you wake up early. A couple of thoughts or a couple of questions. Did that start with you on the farm? And what does your daily routine kind of look like now with you waking up early?
Well, I don't think it started necessarily when I was on the farm. As a young guy, you try to sleep as much as you can. No, I think getting early probably started when I got to the NFL, actually.
Okay.
The guy that I came up under, like my mentor when I got to the NFL as a special teams coach, was an early morning guy too. And I always wanted to try to do things to help please him or show him how committed I was to doing the job and doing the job right, that I get up and got there at the same time he did. I don't quite get up at 4 o'clock, but my alarm's set for 4:30.
Okay.
And I usually get out of here I leave each morning about 5:15, which gets me to the office probably a little bit before 6. And you're exactly right. It's amazing how much work you can get done before everybody else is even out of bed. And I do completely believe that you can achieve so much more because you really are compacting 2 days into one from what the rest of the working force really is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with it, but people have 9 to 5 jobs. I mean, the day's half over by 9 a.m. to me, I feel like.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing, especially at the office, or even since this quarantine and this pandemic has really come along. I still get up at the same time. I don't even have to set an alarm. I still get up at the same time. And I come in here and sit into my office here at the house and do a lot of video work or tape work, if you want to call it that, well, game film work. And it's amazing how much more work I've got done this off season in comparison to most, because I don't have to drive into the stadium. I mean, it's just all sitting right here in front of me.
Mm.
And there are many days I get caught up and I get so into what I'm doing that I forget. Man, I've even gone outside, come here and do my work, and I get so into it. The next thing you know, it's noon. I grab a quick bite to eat, and I know I got something going. So race to get back in here, and then, oh man, the next thing you know, it's 5 o'clock, and I haven't even got a workout in yet. And so then I work out, and then it's next thing it's 6:30, and it's dinner time, and man, I've never even set foot outside. It is. I think it's a big deal for me to continue with that same. I'm a very routine person, routine oriented. Once I get in that routine, anything that bucks me off that routine, man, shakes me up. I gotta keep the boat flowing down the stream.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. You had mentioned the NFL and one of your mentors, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. So if I remember correctly, you graduated from the University of Kansas in '96. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then within 2 years, you're working for the Baltimore Ravens. So what was it that made you want to get into coaching? when did you know that, okay, look, this is the track that I want to take next? And how did that work? Just that leap, and maybe it wasn't a leap, but from graduating, then 2 years later, you're in the NFL.
Well, I was fortunate. I had a good senior season as a punter at Kansas, so I had dreams and aspirations like everybody else did of playing pro football. And I was probably right on the border of being good enough or not good enough. Ultimately, I wasn't good enough to make it in the NFL. So I did the next best thing, which is if I can't play, is to try to coach and try to instruct somebody else on what to do or how to do it. I had a couple coaches along the way tell me that, really what coaches are players who can't play anymore or who weren't good enough to play, and which is probably about right, honestly. So anyway, after I got done playing at Kansas, I had a couple tryouts with a couple teams. I had a tryout in the Europe, and then as a way for me to continue to train to punt, the easiest way for me to do that was also to be a graduate assistant. So I was a graduate assistant coach at Kansas under Glenn Mason, the guy that I played for, and that was the easiest way for me. So I was dabbling in coaching, but at the same time, I was still training to try to be able to play. I was a GA at Kansas there for the 1996 season for Coach Mason. He ultimately left and went to the University of Minnesota, and he asked me to come with him. So I also went with him up to the University of Minnesota for the 97 season. Also, again, it was the same thing. It was a way for me to continue to train. It was a way for me to go to graduate school and dabble in this coaching stuff too, and see if that's really what I wanted to do. Ultimately, like I mentioned earlier, I had an uncle who played and was a strength coach in the NFL at the time. He started off with the New England Patriots, and then he was with the Cleveland Browns. And ultimately, if you can remember, the Cleveland Browns became the Baltimore Ravens. And so for several summers leading into training camp or leading into my two-a-days in preparation for my season, I would go to Cleveland or I would go to Baltimore and help the Ravens or the Browns in training camp. And it was also a way for me to get great training from an NFL special teams coach. So I established a relationship with the special teams coach here by a guy by the name of Scott O'Brien. And then I had a decision to make at the end of that 97 season with the University of Minnesota. There was a job opportunity with the Ravens. I could go to Baltimore and be the assistant special teams coach and assist a strength and conditioning coach. So it was kind of a dual role position. Or I could continue to stay at Minnesota and be a GA there and continue to train to try to make it in the NFL as a punter. And I thought, well, I better take the sure thing here. And so that's kind of how I got into to coaching and how I got an opportunity. It was really because of the relationships that I built with the special teams coach, in addition to obviously my uncle kind of opened up that door, for me way back, even starting in high school, by bringing me in there and having me help in training camp. So
what was it?
How my career got started.
No, that's very interesting too. Just, one of the things that stood out to me with you talking here was just your, this dual role. You're training and you're kind of getting some experience. I'd read this book a number of years ago called Halftime. And I like the analogy of the guy who wrote the book. He kind of talked about drilling for oil, right? Where you test to see, all right, is there something there? And I kind of went through the same thing. I'm preaching now full time, but back in 2001, I was in pharmaceutical sales. I did that for about 8 years, but I started preaching, or at least I tried to. Looking back at some of those sermons, they weren't the best, but I started doing that probably a few years before I made that actual decision. And so just listening to you, that kind of sounds like that same approach where you're giving yourself some options. And this may be off subject a little bit, but I know you have a senior, and I'm thinking a lot about college kids, thinking about some of ours at our congregation. Things are totally different now, right? Even with college. And do you have any advice or thoughts with the challenges that we're currently facing, and just even how some of the college or seniors or college students, what type of mindset they might be able to have or should have, or flexibility? Because when things don't always work out the way that you want, being able to pivot and things like that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, certainly doing it. And this one hits obviously certainly close to home with me, with my daughter. I feel so bad for her not getting to experience things as a senior. She was a volleyball player. She's an athlete too. She's actually going to go on and play Division II volleyball at IUP, which is Indiana University of Pennsylvania. It's a little bit northeast of Pittsburgh. So fortunately for her, she's going to get to do that, but she's missed out on her club season, or her club volleyball season. That takes place really from November all the way through, essentially, for a senior, the end of May. But for everybody, all underclassmen, it's through the end of July. And I hate it for her that she's not going to get to finish out her club season with her teammates, her friends. She's missing out on her prom as a senior. She's going to miss out on graduation as a senior. It's unique. She graduates on Sunday. She actually just went about 10 minutes ago to pick up her cap and gown. But I really hate it that she's not going to get to experience that with her friends. And so we've tried to find ways to, it's still very difficult right now because of the uncertainty of being around people. And, in a pretty populated area like we are here in Cincinnati, it's actually been pretty good. I think that our governor has really been out in the forefront of this whole COVID thing. And we had stay-at-home orders. We were one of the first states that been under lockdown.
Yeah.
I think it's probably helped. But the difficult part, I think, is the uncertainty that these kids are facing now. And are they going to be virtual in the fall? Are they going to go on campus in the fall? Are they going to be able to be around things? And I think that's going to be a developing thing. But I do know that one big part that we've tried to really be sensitive to what her mindset is and really be sensitive to what her needs are and be super positive with her, because obviously it's an unprecedented thing that we're all going through. It's a difficult time. And it's certainly difficult for them missing out. You and I both remember what it was like to be a senior and how rewarding that was to get to walk across the stage and somebody hand you the diploma. And they're not going to get to experience that. And it crushes my gut, man. It just hits me right in the heart that she's not going to get that. So we're very sensitive to that. We're going to try to do things as a family. She's going to try to do later on here in several weeks. A big group of her friends are going to have their own little graduation ceremony that they've kind of missed out on. But I think it's just being super sensitive to what their needs are and how they're feeling, what they're going through. And the uncertainty of the fall is a big deal. She doesn't know, are they going to have a volleyball season in the fall this year? Are they going to push it back to the spring? I think nobody knows that, and us just trying to be as positive as we can with her about preparing that everything's going to be the same. Yeah. And then you just have to adjust if it's not, and just remember that everybody else is in the same boat that we're in. It's unique for everyone.
Yeah. I know, and I have so many more questions. I know we're short on time, but as a coach, and you're coaching in the NFL, so every week I can only imagine the pressure that you have. So I know that you work extremely hard. That's something that you had mentioned earlier. How do you go about navigating, I guess, the obstacles that come along? You can have, I know some coaches will write out the first 15 plays for the game, and sometimes that can just go right up in the air depending on what happens in a game. And I'm just kind of thinking, how do you go about handling that pressure? You seem very calm now. Do you have a switch that turns on Sunday at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock? Walk us through that, with that kind of pressure, internalizing that pressure, pivoting, making those adjustments. I think there's some similarities, obviously, with what we're experiencing right now.
If you ask my players, I'm sure the players would say I'm very intense. Whether it's on Sundays or whether it's on a Wednesday. I don't think I am that way. I really try to. People think I'm out of control on the sidelines. But I view it as energy. I'm trying to create energy.
Okay.
And I do it for a reason. I do it on purpose, because I think our players feed off of that. Now, I've got to be careful that I don't overdo it. Trust me, don't get me wrong. But I do it because I think our players feed off of that. I think the one thing that's very unique about what I do as a special teams coach is every play is fourth down. So you've got one shot to do it and do it right. It's like again, I go back to my mentor. He says, you're like it's crazy as it sounds, but you're like a sniper. You have one shot, and if you don't connect on that shot, then you're had. Somebody's going to find you. And so that one shot or that one play for us on special teams has to be the best thing it can possibly be. So all of our focus and energy has to go on one play. Mm-hmm. But then what's unique, I think, about dealing with pressure is regardless whether that play was successful or not, I've got to then focus on the next play and then the play after that and the play after that. So then all my energy goes to the next play. All my focus goes to the next play. I think that's always what I like about the NFL is, and about what I do. I don't have time to worry about pressure. I don't think about pressure because I'm worried about getting our players prepared. And I think you feel that there's two types of pressure. In my mind, there's pressure that's felt and pressure that's applied. And obviously, we want to be the one that's applying the pressure. You want to be the hammer and not the nail, for lack of a better term. But I think confidence that you gain, I think you feel pressure when you're not prepared for something.
Gotcha.
We've all gone through, in school when you go to a test and when you haven't prepared well enough and you're getting ready to take that test, you're nervous. You're nervous because you don't know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what's coming. You don't know how well you're going to do. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side of that, we've all been a part of things or taken tests where we've studied our tails off, for days or got ready for a final, and you can't wait to go take that test because you know you're going to do good. Mm-hmm. That's how I think I have to approach. That's how I want to approach games as a coach. I can't wait to get to the game because I know we're going to play well. Because I've done everything I can do that I possibly can within my power, every bit of energy I can to prepare our players. And if I don't feel like I've prepared our players as well as I possibly can, I'm shortchanging not only the player, I'm shortchanging the biggest thing, which is ultimately the team.
Saturday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Saturday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Saturday. Saturday, bring it on.
Lowe's knows that no matter your paint project, saving is at the top of your list. That's why when you shop today, you can buy one, get one free select Valspar and HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams one-coat coverage interior paints via rebate. Shop these deals in-store or online today at Lowe's. We help, you save. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Discount taken at time of purchase. See sales associate for details. Offer valid 8/21 through 9/3.
When do you know you're prepared? Is it just kind of a feeling? Is it, I know you had mentioned Wednesdays and Sundays, that energy really comes out. Is it at a particular time, or is it just after looking at, you've done your work with the game film, you have a game plan, and you just know? Is it Saturday? Is it Sunday morning? When do you?
Well, no, usually it's Monday about 10 o'clock, the day after the game, after I watch the video.
Okay.
No, because I still, I think there's a difference between being nervous and being excited.
Okay.
And there's so much that goes into every single game that we play that I've always told myself that I'm going to be done coaching when they play the national anthem and the hair doesn't stand up on my arm. It's just every time they play the national anthem, it's still the hair on my arm just stands straight up because of the excitement. I still get butterflies. I still get the same feeling before every kickoff. And that's the unique thing about being a special teams coach is, it's like
you're up first.
Yeah, well, we have a little insignia or emblem that we use, and it's a spear. And I think in special teams, you're always because we're the tip of the spear. We're always the first ones in, And so there's so many, things that can be equated to the military. I think in football and certainly in special teams, but we're always the first one. We're either going to start the game or we're going to start the second half.
Mm-hmm.
And I still get equally as uptight and nervous about each one of those plays when there are questions there. Do I have my guys prepared as well as I possibly can? I usually get a pretty good sense of that before the game. Sometime before the game, about maybe noon, 12:30, when I go talk to the other coach, the other special teams coach before the game, I can get a sense for him about how uptight or how nervous he is. And if I sense some anxiety with them, I know we got him. It makes me feel better that we got him.
Yeah.
That may not ultimately be the deal, but at least I'll have a couple of hours there of calmness where I think, okay, maybe we got something up.
Yeah.
No, in the end, I know we're prepared. It's satisfying, if you want to call it that, or exhilarating to me when I watch the video after the game on Monday mornings, watch our players go execute exactly what we worked on or exactly how we thought the game was going to play out. If they can go do that, then I know that's the greatest sense of satisfaction I can get, to know that our guys went out and they did what we set out to do. That's what gives me the satisfaction of being a coach, is trying to get these guys to do things they didn't think they could do.
I took a line from the NFL, and I know other sports teams do it as well, but I call it watching the game film. So I try to do that with my sermons. When I was in pharmaceutical sales, they would record us in the training facility, and that was at times kind of embarrassing, but there's something about getting that instant feedback. How do you take the emotion out of, when you are watching the game film and, just really focusing on, okay, here's what we need to improve upon? Because a lot of people have a hard time getting feedback, especially if it's negative feedback. So how are you able to get your players to see, okay, look, let's take the emotion out of this and really drill down or focus upon what needs to be done or corrected?
Well, I think in football, it's hard for me to take the emotion out because it's such an emotional game. It's a game of, I think what it is, though, it's a game of being able to control the emotion, control the highs and the lows. Because there are times when I want those peaks. What you try to eliminate is the lows. And so for me as a coach, I think the constant battle for me is to try to keep it on an even, as close to an even keel as I can. But I certainly want to accentuate the highs. Again, I think being a special teams coach, what's unique is, we have 46 players, who play or who are what we call active on Sunday.
Okay.
So those are 46 different personalities that I have to deal with and learn to deal with. A quarterback coach has one personality he has to deal with, or a tight end coach may have three guys he has to deal with on game day. Me as a special teams coach, I deal with 46. 45, because I really don't have to mess with the quarterback. But I think being able to manage each guy's personality and what pushes his buttons or what triggers him. Some guys I can really get on. I can really get in their face, try to motivate them that way. And other guys, as we all know, have different personalities. If you get on them, they melt. I mean, I learned that even in my whatever it is, my 17th year here, I guess, as a coach, I learned that I'll give you a quick example of a linebacker that we had. We drafted a linebacker from Texas in the third round, and we were preparing to play the Falcons in Atlanta. This is in 2018, and we started off on kickoff, and we practiced a certain play of their kickoff return probably 8 times, and he was the key guy that he had to, if A does this and you do B, and I thought we had it down pat, and I thought he did certainly. Because we practiced it so much. It was a big play for him. And we go to the opening kickoff, and they did exactly what we anticipated to do, and he did exactly what he wasn't supposed to do. He did exactly the opposite thing. So, it was just, I was floored that how can he make that mistake? Yeah. Well, ultimately, it's my job, and the way that I view it as a coach is it's my job to get him to do it, and to get him to do it the right way. So obviously, I took it personally. But I took it too far. I jumped in the middle of him, and he didn't respond. I mean, I got the blank stare, like he was scared, and I scared him. And then what I learned, though, was the next play, he went out there on the punt team, and he made a major mistake on the punt team, too. Blocked the wrong guy on the punt team, caused us to get a punt blocked. So I learned, even though it was my 17th year, you'd think I already know this, but this kid was a rookie at the time. I didn't know his personality well enough to know that I can't treat him the same way that I may be able to treat the player next to him. I can't get in the middle of him. If I get in the middle of him, he freezes up, he got scared, and which now compounded him to make another mistake. So I think each person that you come across is different in how that you manage them, or how that you coach them, or how that you instruct them, or how that you deal with them.
Yeah.
Whether it's on a coaching level or a personal level, I think it's you have to know how to manage people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been really good. I want to be respectful of your time. The 30 minutes has gone by fast, but I want to just give you the last word here. There's one last thought you like to give the audience. What might that be?
Well, I think that, obviously going through a difficult time like we're all going through right now, more importantly, not knowing what to expect. It's very unique. I did tell our family here, I got a wife and 3 kids, as I said earlier, that I said, even though this time is unprecedented about the uncertainty of it, I said, the one thing that we do have is we have each other. And I said, trust me, it is never, hopefully, knock on wood, we're never going to go through a time like this again where we get to spend this much time together. And I think that regardless of how much longer this lasts or whatever goes, I think the biggest deal is to enjoy the time that you have with your family. Hold them close, learn things, about each other. Sometimes it's difficult. The dynamic of trying to manage all that at once, trust me, especially when you got a couple kids in high school who want to go do their things. But it's been really, really a blessing. The time that we've been able to share and spend together and being able to take advantage of that would be the one thing I'd like to leave with, is just how important family is and how important it is to cherish these times that even though it's we don't know how it's going to end up, but just enjoy the moment and cherish the moment and turn whatever it could be as a negative, try to turn it into a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for those words. I think that's the perfect way for us to end. And once again, I really appreciate your time and looking forward to watching the Bengals. I know this is going to be an exciting year for you all, and definitely checking you out on the sideline this year. I want to see that. I want to see that energy. So thank you so much, Coach, and take care.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the time.
All right. Take care. I hope you enjoyed the show. Once again, I had a great time being able to spend talking to Coach and learning a great deal. Be sure to subscribe to my podcast. I would greatly appreciate it. And be sure to check out my website, benjaminlee.blog. If you're looking for some motivation, I believe you'll be able to find it there, where I talk a lot about faith, family, fitness, and food. You'll also be able to find all of my podcast episodes there and more. And remember, I can do, and so can you.